The Jester Radio Podcast.
So we are rolling. What's happening? Thank you so much for coming through. Thank you for bringing an audience. It's awesome to have some people through here. So,
It's such a pleasure.
yeah, you literally drove through from Durban this morning.
Yeah, we were on the road this morning from 4 o'clock and we got to Joburg, half an hour ago?
And you bought me some drugs.
And we bought you some drugs.
So what is your purpose here coming this weekend?
So I'm hosting a workshop up at Barbell Bullies tomorrow. It's a Learn to Lift Like a Pro seminar. So it's basically a technique workshop on the big lifts. I'm a powerlifter and a powerlifting coach. And I'm just here to educate people and get them moving the right way and understanding the mechanics behind movement.
So you actually had probably about 10, 15 people that said that you need to come on the podcast.
Oh,
Maybe
awesome.
they didn't know that you obviously were in Durban.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming through. And do you want to give a brief history on how you got into powerlifting and
Do you
your
want
background?
the R-rated version?
Yeah.
Okay.
The more fun one, yeah, please.
So I come from a very long, this is probably such a cliche as well, I come from a history of cocaine addiction. And when I was going through the 12-step program, I kind of had to apply myself to something else to get myself through. And when you come from an addictive personality, or come from an addictive background and you have an addictive personality, you tend to get addicted to something new. And I threw myself into strength and fitness. And it's quite an experience because when you've spent so long thriving on detriment and you try to turn that around, it takes your body a long time to respond. So there's a lot of mental building behind that, getting through training. I mean, you know what it's like to put so much into the gym and not to see the results of the hard work. I think that built something in me that's I couldn't compare to anything else I've experienced in my life. So anyways, a year into training, I thought, sure, I'm really becoming obsessed with strength. I'm becoming obsessed with watching my body evolve. And I decided to get back into varsity, went and studied sports science, and the rest is history.
And this was all when you were in Durban?
No. I was living and working in Europe. I used to work in the hotel industry, so this is early 20s. I've only been in Durban now for the last 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Rustenburg.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Rustenburg. Went to high school in Durban, university in Cape Town, and then I spent a lot of my time in Europe. So I think being part of the hotel industry is kind of what got me into cocaine. And cocaine and I were best friends. I gave it everything, which is why now in the strength industry and within powerlifting, I've given that same sort of dedication as I did to my drug addiction into powerlifting and strength. And I think that's really been what's taken me to where I am today,
And is it strength particularly because, like, obviously general gym, your focus isn't to get stronger, it's to almost improve your physical, attributes. Is because with powerlifting, it's almost linear. You can, if you do this, you will get stronger. If you do that, this will benefit you in a certain way. Is it because you saw those results better through powerlifting, or why was it?
I think it was the mental challenge behind it and knowing, my first powerlifting meet, I broke an unofficial world deadlift record, which obviously sparked an absolute passion in me because you become so empowered by being able to lift that weight that the obsession just grows and grows and grows. And I wasn't obsessed with training or fitness in any sense. It was the fact that I'd overcome so much in the last 10 years to actually get up on a platform and achieve something that big, an accolade to that degree after being what I'd been through. So it purely became about powerlifting. It wasn't whatever powerlifting did to my body, it didn't worry me. A lot of people said, you bench press and your pecs are going to grow. As a woman, does that worry you? Your waist's going to get thicker. This is all bullshit and comes from people without an educated background. But those things, I would do whatever it took. I did whatever it took to become successful within the sport. This is myself as an athlete, not as a coach.
Yeah. And now you still compete?
It's a tough one. I'm in the process. I'm kind of up and down between whether I should hang up my chucks or not. I'm leaning towards hanging up my chucks for good. I finished on a very, very high note last year, and I've grown my powerlifting team. We're now 50 international athletes. It's a big team. It takes a lot of work. It's a lot of dedication. And when I get ready for a meet, I'm 110% involved in that meet, and everything else in my life takes a back seat. But because my club has grown so big and become so dependent on me as a coach, obviously, I find like I'm so much more passionate about seeing my lifters lift than I am about achieving anything for myself. And like I said, it takes so much from me that they all kind of take a back seat. And I don't want that for myself anymore. When I see whether it's a novice, a first-time lifter, a 48 kg girl get up on a platform and deadlift 100, or one of my elite level squatters who are squatting 370, I get that same sort of anxiety, stress. I go through the emotions with them. And when I saw myself doing that and feeling less passionate about my own PRs, I think that's when I realized, like, this is so much bigger than just me. You know, seeing the sport grow in this country, like I definitely am leaning towards not getting up on the platform. And I also feel like, what more do I really need to achieve? I've obviously achieved quite a bit within the sports. I'm never going to be number one in the world. I'm 36 years old. I can obviously continue to get stronger, but it's too late for me to chase number one. It's too late for me to go much further. And getting much stronger, getting another world record is not going to give me more credibility. Nobody cares whether I've got 19 or 20 world records. Nobody gives a fuck. But they do care how many people I'm making strong. They do care how many of my athletes are getting invited to international competitions. So that's kind of where I'm heading now, and it means that I can also live vicariously through them for the rest of my life.
And it's nice because you can, there's far more satisfaction in helping others than there is you achieving something.
Absolutely.
And also
Absolutely.
in terms of a business aspect of it, it's far smarter.
For sure.
Unless you're like, one of the best in the world, it's not financially viable for that to be the only thing that you're doing.
Absolutely.
So you were speaking about your PRs. What are some of your PRs?
So last year in competition, I squatted 150, I deadlifted 185, and I benched 67.5, and that's all at 51 kgs body weight.
And in terms of like world records, how close is that?
Well, I currently have 19 world records. That is in my federation. So powerlifting is much like boxing. There's a handful of federations, so that's within my federation. I'm currently ranked number 2 in the world in the 52 kg class. The girl who's ahead of me is 100 kgs ahead of me. It is just unachievable. I love being second to her. She's an incredible lifter. She's an inspiring lifter. Like I said, I'm 36. I want to give so much more to powerlifting, and it's so much bigger than just me. Nobody really cares about what you've achieved personally. No, like I said, nobody remembers, nobody knows, nobody cares. Can I make them stronger? Yes or no?
Yeah. Well, you now obviously focusing on training other people, and lockdown came. You guys had to close your gym.
Yes.
So doing online training, obviously on your stories, you got people who obviously, watching them do their lifts and everything. How is it coaching online? Is it more difficult to correct form?
I actually find it far easier. So we've been in the industry now. I've been in the industry for 14 years now. I've been with my own powerlifting coach for 5 years. I've never spoken to him on the phone. He's based out in Australia. And being able to work with, obviously in Durban, in my gym, I'm working hands-on with my lifters. But even when I had the gym, back then, before COVID hit, of the 40 athletes I had, only 9 of them were based in Durban. The rest were countrywide and international. And what I find is, as much as it's great to be on the spot with that athlete in the gym, correcting as they go, you cannot freeze frame something. You cannot pick up a weakness, you blink, it's gone. That moment is gone forever. Where with video analysis, you can constantly pause, rewind, study their movements, study their weaknesses, study every part of the movement. And I think that is what's been able to really evolve us as a business and my athletes. I find that my online athletes are progressing at an exponential rate. And also, we've been thinking about going online for a long time. We kind of used COVID as, I don't want to say as an excuse, but as an opportunity to really make that call. We were forced into the situation. When it came to reopening the gym, we thought to ourselves, what do we want to do? The world is going digitally. Do we want to continue being based in one facility here in Umhlanga and only really helping the people within our community, or go full throttle and invest into growing this business digitally? And it's been the best thing for us. It's obviously a whole different business model. After having the gym for 7 years, we knew what we were doing. Now, every day is an education. But sorry, back to the question about the athletes. I definitely find it far more useful having them online. Yes, one-on-one, having that personal relationship with them, there is a bit of separation, but with social media, everything's digital nowadays. Don't you feel like, you've been following me for a while on Instagram, I've been following you for a while on Instagram, I kind of feel like I know you.
Yeah.
And I've never met you, and you develop those relationships with your athletes. We speak every day, we do a lot of Zoom sessions, so I have fantastic relationships with them all over the world. So why be, I understand the necessity of being in person, but nowadays I don't feel like you have to be.
Yeah.
You know, there are options. It also means that people who are looking for coaches, in the past you were kind of stuck to what you have around you. And unfortunately in this country, because we don't have the access to great leaders in the industry and great educators, it's hard for us to evolve as coaches. So as an athlete, I had to reach outward to find a coach. I had to look internationally to find someone that could really develop me as an athlete. And I feel that there's a lot of people like that. That's, you know, I'm living here in Joburg and I really want a great powerlifting coach, but there isn't, I'm not saying there isn't one here, I'm just talking hypothetically. And people all over the world can now reach those people they really want to work with, and they can, you know.
Yeah. Well, I know, because I used to live in Pretoria, and one of your athletes, Shana.
Shauna Trail.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always used to see her training there, and I mean how incredibly strong she was. I was looking at my squats and thinking, sure, maybe I should, work at improving on my strength.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because also she's in Pretoria, you're in Durban. You don't actually physically meet face to face all the time.
I think we've worked together once in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and that's
physically together.
the benefits of social media and the benefit of technology and the benefit of just being able to send a video in HD. You see the form perfectly. And speaking of form, there's lots of people that will, especially with a bench press.
Yes.
People that you almost get like the bodybuilding bench press and then the powerlifting bench press. Do you want to explain what's more beneficial in terms of strength for powerlifting bench press?
So I think when people look at what is more beneficial, it just comes from a background of actually not knowing better. Because when you understand biomechanics and physics and how to move a barbell the most efficient way, you will understand that the arch that we put ourselves in is the safest position and healthiest position for your shoulders to be in. If you look at some of the oldest and biggest structures in the world, if you look at bridges, if you look at the Colosseum, if you look at the Arc de Triomphe, they're all built on arches. So it's a great foundation. The powerlifting bench press, what people don't understand, is a movement that requires so much more than it's not a chest movement. Anybody who says that the bench press is for their chest don't actually understand mechanics. It's a full body movement. I mean, we're driving that power straight from the ground through a hip extension into our glutes, into creating thoracic extension so that we have that power of our chest. Bodybuilders should bench in the same way. The rules change a little bit, but if you're looking to develop strength, firstly, as a bodybuilder, if you want to be able to really stress your muscle out, you have to have a good foundation of strength. The more strength you have, the more you are able to stress your muscle out. So I think it's important to do a bit of both of the lifts. That bench press also gets a bit of a bad rep because people don't do it correctly, so there's often a lot of shoulder injuries surrounding the movement. But I would definitely recommend learning how to do a powerlifting bench before altering it.
Well, I mean, if you look at bodybuilders, 90% of them have sore shoulders, damaged shoulders, injured shoulders, impingements, and it's all because of majority of the time.
It just comes down to bad movements.
Yeah, it's bad movements. And how is, the recovery period from training? Because, like watching Shana, she'd be there for 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas a bodybuilder go in 45 minutes and then leave.
Yeah, the stress factors are so different. Obviously, when you're training at such a high intensity, your nervous system gets a knock. I mean, when we're maxing, they say for a male, it can take up to 21 days for their nervous system to recover. With a woman, it takes up to 14 days. And also, our sessions are built quite differently. I mean, we'll go into a squat session and do 3 movements. Where a bodybuilder will go in and you're doing up to 20 sets of over 100 reps. I mean, I've done deadlift sessions where I've spent 2 hours doing 8 reps. So it's a very different stimuli. It's a very different stress on your body. We're also only training 4 to 5 sessions a week, where bodybuilders are sometimes training twice a week. Twice a day. So I think the recovery period depends on the intensity and the volume of your session.
Well, I mean, when you lift heavy, your body's under more strain, so you do need more time to recover.
100%.
And you've got female athletes. I think that, I don't know if you have any males, but that you train for bodybuilding shows.
Yes, but I really do wear the powerlifting hat. I'm a powerlifting coach. Yes, I come from a background of being and working as a strength coach, and that's how I got into powerlifting. But my niche market is powerlifting. There are 3 girls that I train. I don't train many more. It's not a market that I try to reach out to. But at the end of the day, I do come from a background of strength development. Again, I understand how the body moves. I understand structural balance. I understand all these elements that are essential for building the body. And those ladies that I've worked with for a long time, and they've seen the benefits of how the compound lifts have changed their bodies, how they don't have to work as hard as other athletes.
You say as hard, but lifting heavy is still difficult.
Oh no, absolutely. Sorry, I should say that at the volume that other athletes train. I mean,
you're working smart, not harder. Working smarter, not harder.
100%. My girls don't do any cardio. It's just about lifting weights. So it is quite a different approach, and I think it's an approach that a lot of people are a little bit nervous of, because it doesn't have a lot of history. It doesn't have, people know the bodybuilding background, they know that approach to training. But if you look at some of the best and top fitness models in the world, you look at Hattie Bodle, you look at Lauren Simpson, and you look at how they train, and they are not training how bodybuilders train. Hattie Bodle and myself have the same strength coach, and we trained very similar. Obviously, her training coming into season changes quite substantially, but she's got that background. I mean, Hattie Bodle's got a 150 kg squat, she's got a 150 kg deadlift, and still a lot of ladies in the industry will hear this, but they're still petrified. But they'll look to Hattie Bodle and go, that's an inspiration. That's kind of where I'd like to go within the WBFF or whichever federation, where I'm going with this. But yet, when I have girls approach me and say, look, you've got Demi Krill, you've got Jenna Limerick, I've seen these bodies you've built, but I don't want to do any deadlifts or squats. Well, that's kind of what you're going to get with me. And if you're willing to take the risk and you put your trust in me, you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Well, I mean, last year for my prep for Muscle Militia, instead of cardio in the mornings, I would do, it would just be like 45 minutes of whatever muscle group I was training in the evening. I would do that, but compounds in the morning.
Okay.
So let's say I'm doing back in the evening with like a hypertrophy back workout in the evening. In the morning, I do 6 reps of deadlifts for 4 sets with like 2 minutes of rest. Obviously, the rest is still relatively short. Yeah. But I'd have 2 minutes of rest. Then I'd do like 4 sets of that. Then I'd do like bent over rows. Then I'd do weighted pull-ups. Just those compound movements for that.
Yeah,
and
so
then
your foundation movements.
Yeah, and it spikes your heart rate up, and then it drops down during 100%. Your rest period. And that's also, as a powerlifter, you need to eat to fuel your body.
Absolutely.
Because the way, the hormones that are released through lifting heavy is actually far more beneficial. People overlook that.
Far more superior, the growth hormone. And I think what people also overlook is when you are training at the intensity of a powerlifter, or not a powerlifter, a fitness model who lifts really heavy, it takes a lot of energy to move a heavy weight, which means your body has to work harder to recover. Your body changes in recovery. So your post-oxygen consumption is working at a much higher rate. You get to the gym and you get on the treadmill and you run on the treadmill for an hour and you burn 250 calories. You get off the treadmill, your body goes back to burning those calories at the same rate. However, you walk into the gym, you do some heavy squats, some heavy deadlifts. Yeah, maybe you only burn 300 calories in that session as opposed to like a hardcore cardio session where you can burn 600 or 700 calories. But you're burning calories at a much higher rate. You're burning calories while you're sleeping. And people don't see that. People look at, deadlift session, I only burn 400 calories. What a waste of time. I'm not going to do this again. It's doing nothing for my body. But your body changes in recovery.
Yeah. And also you're burning fat, you're burning calories, and you're building muscle, and you're
building joints, you're building ligaments, you're building tendon strength.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, weightlifting, osteoporosis for old women, especially 100%. For someone that maybe has never lifted a weight in their life, they must never overlook going and lifting weights, even if you're 40, 50 years old, because the benefits for your bone, the benefits for even your immune system, everything. And there's actually, this is a completely different segue, but how do you feel about, like Eddie Hall and the Mountain going and having a boxing match now? Going from their background, what they previously have done.
Yeah, I really think that's exciting. I think they're doing it for the money. If someone said to me they were going to offer me that money and I had to get in the ring with Steffi Cohen, come at me. She can take me out for that money. Everything's about media for them. Strongman is about money. It's about entertainment. But I'd rather see them battle it out at the Arnolds than see them, throwing really slow, hard punches in a ring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he just did 500, the Thor just did 501 kilogram deadlift. Is there anyone in South Africa that you could see would even come close to that? I mean, what's the max that a local person has done?
So the record is actually being attempted next weekend. Guy from Durban, his name's Chris Stranius, he's attempting to go 405. There was a powerlifter back in the 80s who pulled 402.5, and that record has not been broken since. So Chris is trying this next weekend. It's a big charity thing. So if Chris, and I really do believe he will break that record, I think he's got 410 in him. Bearing in mind, this is a powerlifting deadlift, not a strongman deadlift. The strongmen are pulling more than that.
Do you want to explain the difference?
So a powerlifting deadlift, you're obviously not allowed to use reps. There's no hitching. It's from a dead stop, full lockout. With a strongman deadlift, again, I'm sure you've seen them deadlift. They're allowed to use reps, which makes a substantial difference. You can add a lot of weight to the bar. If you're using reps, they can hitch that bar up. It doesn't really matter how that bar gets up. It doesn't matter how they lock it out. So there's a lot less rules surrounding a strongman deadlift. So, for someone to deadlift 405 in powerlifting and someone to do in strongman, it's two completely different competitions. It's ping pong and tennis.
Yeah. So for you, what's your personal favorite, lift to do?
Definitely the deadlift. Obviously because it's my strength, but yeah, it's not just because I'm not competing now. I've still got personal goals. I would still like to pull 200 at my body weight, not in competition. You know, it doesn't mean anything if it's not in competition. But as long as I'm constantly chasing, for me now that will become a personal feat of strength.
And is that also something you help people that aren't? You train not for competitions, but just for general strength.
Yeah, I do have a lot of athletes that I shouldn't use the word athletes. A lot of people that purely come to me for strength training as an addition to their training. So I work with a professional boxer, I work with professional MMA fighters. I am not a skills coach. I do not treat my MMA fighters and my boxers. I don't help them get better at their sport. I help them build base strength. And with that, they will go to their skills coach, and et cetera, et cetera.
What is your number one, if someone says they want to get stronger, what is your number one thing that you say they should do?
Compound lifts.
Okay.
Absolutely compound lifts. Because it is a bilateral movement, I believe that there's far less chance of injury if you're using, not less chance of injury, but it's a far easier movements to train, when you're looking at structural balance being your primary focus when it comes to training, doing things like the deadlift, squat. Bench press is not something I'll do with anyone. I really just do bench pressing with my powerlifters, but any press, even an overhead press, it really challenges every fiber in your body. And when you're looking to develop strength is so much more than just musculature. Like we said just now, it's that tendon strength, it's that connective tissue, it's that ligament strength. So working the compound lifts, when you're working a deadlift, it is working every fiber from your ankles all the way top of your neck. So it honestly is great. They are great movements to build a foundation with.
Yeah. Well, if anyone comes to you and say, I want to eat more, tell them to do compound lifts.
Absolutely.
You yourself, you say you competed at 51, 52. What are you now?
I'm about 57.
Okay. And how many calories do you eat today?
2,400.
And for most girls, that's probably 1,000 more than they been told to by coaches.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
You lean as well. So what for those people that maybe don't know, and the people watching, what is the benefit of lifting heavier? Like, why can you eat more?
It's that, as I explained, that post-oxygen consumption. Your body's burning so many more calories. I think people don't understand that you have to fuel your body. You need to fuel your system. When you deprive yourself too much of calories and fuel and glycogen to restore your muscles, you're not going to not only grow, but you're not going to burn fat at an increased rate.
So now
but that also doesn't mean the grey girl on the street can't just suddenly start eating 2,400 calories. I've trained myself to be in a position where my body's working like an absolute machine and it can work through those calories. Most girls at 57 kgs, obviously if they don't have the muscle mass, they're not going to get through the amount of calories.
And burning the amount of calories that you are during your sessions. So now you're coming to Joburg this weekend. You're doing a workshop, and that's also, as you said earlier, you want to encourage and help and build up the information readily available to people in the industry.
That's it.
You're not closing off yourself to other coaches. You're having coaches. Come on.
Yeah, most of the
you're
workshops
mixing
been
with
built
your
by
competition,
coaches,
and you're trying to educate and elevate people.
Well, that's the thing. I think my biggest motivation is to be an educator. I feel like we are held back a little bit in South Africa, and if our personal trainers and our strength coaches can constantly upskill themselves and have access to this kind of knowledge, why not share it? Do we not want our people to move better? Because in turn, our bodybuilders are going to get better, our powerlifters are going to get better. It's going to make our country better as a whole.
Well, at its core, powerlifting is the fundamentals of everything.
Absolutely. You know, they're the kind of movements that you'll do with high level athletes like a rugby player or an MMA fighter, because there's low chance of risk. Where I personally am not going to get my rugby players to do something like clean and jerk, because there's high risk factor there. They can injure themselves. Lifting weights is not a priority for them. But the deadlift and squat, when you learn how to move well and you know how to be technically proficient, you've got so much to gain from it. And when you're doing proper risk management around injuries, there's so much room for them to grow and so little room for them to get injured.
Yeah. So I put in my story a poll, and I can't remember if you did as well, for some questions that people wanted to ask.
Okay.
Was there any of them that you really thought, okay, that's cool, I'd like to discuss?
I'd like to. There was that question about steroids. I can't remember what it was.
Or something about steroids in strongman or in powerlifting.
In powerlifting, yeah. So obviously powerlifting, steroids are rife in powerlifting, as they are in all sports. I think anybody who's under the impression that elite level athletes are not using, I think that's coming from quite a naive place, and I'm talking across all sports here, from golf to swimming to cycling, whatever it is. Every high level athlete is using some kind of performance enhancing drug. That's my opinion. I have absolutely no opinion of it. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you want to choose to do, if my athletes come to me to discuss it and it's something they're interested in doing, it's not something that I advocate in a sense, but I don't have an opinion of it. If, a lot of people will say to me that, how do you feel about competing in a federation that on our applications for world champs, it says in bold letters that this federation is not tested. How do I feel about going up against those women? I would much rather come second or third to a woman who says, hey, I'm on gear, than to someone who says, hey, I'm not on gear. I like the open honesty of it. Whether I'm going to do it, am I earning $1 million for winning, for scoring a winning touchdown in the NFL? Powerlifting's not the NFL. We're not earning any money from it. We're lucky if we get a handshake, if we get a gold medal. So as a woman, that line to cross is a big decision that you've got to make within yourself. Personally, if it's what you want to do, I support you. If you're an athlete of mine, I back you. That's what I'm here for. I'm going to sit you down. I'm going to talk about the negative effects. I'm going to, make sure that you're 100% aware of what you're doing if this is a decision that you really want to go through with. However, in saying all of that, all my athletes know that, in my opinion, I believe you have to achieve a certain level of strength. You have to earn the right to consider taking gear, then to just use it to get stronger. You need to have base strength. You need to know what hard work is about. You need to know what the grind is about. You need to earn your stripes. Because, of course, with any sport, a lot of people it's the quick route. Of course it is. In bodybuilding, it's a lot easier to get leaner if you're taking something. It's a quick, easy route. And if that's your prerogative, awesome. Like I said, I have no real opinion of it. It's in powerlifting, it is rife, it is in your face. It's something that we talk about and discuss openly and often. I feel it should be spoken about. I don't think it should be something that's taboo anymore. Like I said, every high-level athlete, or not even high-level athletes, guys who are not even competing, they're just looking to get cut for the beach in December, are using. So, let's be open and honest about it.
And, in terms of even like the people that are strongest in the world,
yes,
the best in the world, it's definitely naive
to think that they're not using. Yeah, of course.
And obviously because of it being illegal, the federations can't openly claim that it's untested or unregulated. It needs to almost sweep under the rug that they know. It's the same as bodybuilding. No one's going to pretend to think that anyone at the Olympia is natural.
100%.
So that's also, it's difficult because people have expectations when they're young that I want to get to that level. But unfortunately, if you want to get to that level, you do need to take something.
That's why education is so important, because you don't want to pull the wool over a 16-year-old's eyes. The more they know about something, the more they understand about it. Also, those people who decide not to use, that's awesome. That's your decision. Support it, back it, but understand what the difference is. And those 16-year-olds can try and never get that physique because they're constantly comparing, because they don't know, they haven't been told. And education, again, so important. Like, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, we're speaking about 16-year-olds, and my audience is a bit older than that, but for someone, because I do have, when I was probably about 5 years ago, I've kind of transitioned my audience. But 5 years ago, when I was still studying, I had an audience of probably about 12 to 20.
Okay.
And a lot of people are starting to train when they're about 12 to 20. And I started training when I was 13. And a lot of people telling me, you're going to stunt your growth. You're going to do this. You're going to damage yourself. Obviously, I wasn't, trying to lift as heavy as I could. But for people that are younger, in your opinion, how do you think is the correct way to go about training? Let's say, 13, 14-year-old kid.
I think that 13 and 14-year-old kids should be lifting weights. I think that people don't realize that when they put their little grade 2 or little standard 1, grade 3 or whatever it is, now I'm showing my age here, into rugby at school, they don't understand that impact and force on their body is far greater than the force and the impact that a weight is putting onto them. If you look at the US and you look at Europe, weightlifting is a sport from when they are in grade 7, when they are in grade 6. If you look at the Chinese, if you look at Asia, you look at the ages that they start at weightlifting, there is no there's no scientific evidence of it. I think, again, it comes down to education. I think in this country, we unfortunately just haven't been exposed to the research, and people's knee-jerk reaction is exactly like you said, it's going to stunt your growth. But look at history, look at people around the world, look at gymnastics.
Yeah.
At 3-4 years old, they starting gymnastics. That kind of body weight training is stress on your body, and it's only doing them a world of good.
Well, most gymnastics are kind of like after 16, they've hit their peak and they're done.
That's it.
So it clearly shows that obviously it's different for different things.
Yeah.
But your body, my fiance actually also did gymnastics, and she started when she was very young as well. And just the foundation that she was able to build just by doing body weight things, and
Absolutely.
by having to do handstands and push-ups and pull-ups and that kind of stuff, it's greatly beneficial for just the general development, and later in life it's far easier to continue that development.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that when she started training, she must have adapted so quickly to weight training.
Yeah.
Because of that foundation that her body was built on. So I'm all for it. I think that children should, I'm not saying that at 10 years old you should be trying to deadlift your body weight, but you should definitely start introducing resistance training to...
Well, your body weight might be 30.
Well, yeah. But
I know mine was. That's why I started.
Yeah.
So now going forward, obviously you say you focus on your athletes, you try, but what are your other goals, personal goals, business goals?
Well, we've just sort of... stepped our toes into this digital world. We always kind of had, an online presence, but it's not something that we threw ourselves into 100%. So that's a big thing that we're working on growing now. OTG was set up it was an establishment in Durban. We had been there for 7 years. We were part of Umhlanga. So we kind of want to do that in a digital sense now. We really want to establish ourselves. We want to grow. The majority of our business is now turning international. That's where we're focusing on our marketing and our advertising. It puts us in a better position, obviously, as a business to have that reach around the world, especially because of the athletes. Powerlifting really is a very big focus for OTG. Even when it comes to our weight loss clients, it's all based on the methodology of the principles of strength and how strength training changes your life. So people who come to OTG, they come to us with that knowledge. They know that they're not going to sign up for any other style of training. That's kind of what we do. So we're definitely focusing on growing ourselves digitally, and we're just trying to educate so many more people. I think for myself personally, obviously Scotty runs the business side of things. For myself personally as a coach, I want to branch out more internationally. I work very closely with a lot of international coaches. I've been mentoring under Sebastian Arab, who is the Australian strength coach for the last 5 years. I work closely with Brandon Lilly, Brian Carroll. There's a lot of big names in powerlifting who we're looking to do a lot more work with. So I'd like to travel more internationally, reach more people that side, improve myself, improve my own knowledge, working with these coaches, and again, just reach more women. Yes, my powerlifting club is probably 45% women, I would say. The rest is men. But it's not a secret that my biggest drive is just trying to get more women educated about the sport, more women educated about strength training, and more women involved in this incredible sport that is so empowering and so life-changing.
Well, it is something that women predominantly are also more hesitant towards, because they think the
Absolutely.
moment they touch a weight they're going to get bulky.
It has a bad reputation.
If
and
only you could get bulky. For males especially.
I've been
that's
trying
yeah.
for 8 years now, and I'm still waiting to
Yeah.
get chunky, you know. Yeah, I mean, if that were the case, people would be breaking down our doors. The men would be, you know.
Yeah.
And again, it just comes down to, I think, like, you know, back in the day, reading magazines and listening to what our moms would say, you know, coming from that generation, we haven't been exposed to the knowledge, the research, the education, and that's what I am personally trying to change here locally. And I think the more women see the results of other women, the more attractive it comes to them. Powerlifting has a bad reputation. You look back 10 years ago at the women who were doing the sport, and they weren't women who kind of fit the profile. You know, they were women who fit the profile, but that doesn't mean they appeared that way because of the sports, you know, if that makes any sense. So, I mean, at OTG, Demi Krill, I don't know if you know Demi Krill, she's an IFBB pro, she comes from a powerlifting background, and her body is purely built on powerlifting, and she does not have she's not massive, she's not chunky, she's not big, she doesn't look the part, you know. I think that's my biggest thing as well, is that I'm quite people don't perceive that from me, when they get quite a shock when they hear that, you know, I'm a 4-time world champion powerlifter, because I have muscle, but I don't look like I have the muscle for the amount of weight that I'm moving.
Yeah.
You know.
So now you've got the workshop this weekend. Unfortunately, this is only going to be up on Monday, so I can't tell anyone. Has it sold out?
It has sold out.
Oh, great.
Yes, it has sold out. Thank you. We will be hosting Durban and Cape Town in the new year, though.
Okay, in the new year. So, guys, please check that out. And thank you so much for coming through. I really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It was awesome to have you. And thanks for the audience. Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.